Okay, welcome to this week's Bridge. I got a really cool guest for you all to check out. It's Marty Lewinter. He's a professor of math at SUNY, amongst other things, and also a musician. And we're going to be covering various topics tonight. So welcome to Marty.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure to be on your show, Bob.
So Marty, we were going to do a little rap about math. Why don't you just start free associating on math, like teaching. You were saying that there's a problem with math and perception of math.
Yep. Well, math is one of those subjects where people walk into class and they, on the average, they hate it. And sometimes they're even vocal about it, like, I hate math, is what they say. And the next thing, they're all worried about it. And a lot of people walk into mathematics classes feeling secretly that they cannot do math. They walk in with this intrinsic block, this phobia, which is the result of years and years of I don't know what. And then all of a sudden I, the guy at the board, I have to make up for that. I have to atone for maybe a math teacher who wasn't good 3 years ago, or some math teacher they had in elementary school who might have not explained things and just said, memorize this, teaching math like a fascist. And then I have to suddenly be an ambassador of goodwill. I have to represent my subject. I have to work hard at the board to overcome people's prejudices about the subject, people's inferiority complexes about math. I have to show them math is clever. It's like a crossword puzzle. It's like a game of chess. It's cool. It's interesting to think about. And that's very hard to do. It's very hard to present that.
How are some of the ways that you do this?
Well, for starters, even for one thing, I put a little history into the course. Like if I'm teaching mathematics, let's say the calculus, I might show them, well, this comes from the 1600s, and Isaac Newton, who also did a lot of pioneering work in physics, was working on the problems of the calculus. And I kind of put it in a historical context, and some of the students like history, and suddenly math is good. Or I might show that math had a great impact on science. Like I might say, how many of you like the idea of space travel? Yeah, well, the hands go up, space travel.
You're teaching on the university level?
Yeah, I teach at Purchase at
college. So when you're saying that you have to make up for a math teacher wasn't good 3 years ago, whatever. So you're getting them on the college level, and they've already distorted on math.
Yeah, they already have an impression.
Do you think that's just intrinsic to a mathematical education in America today?
Well, let's just say this. There are some really exceptionally fine high school and elementary school math teachers out there, but I don't know if they're the rule. They might be the exception. Lots of math teachers in elementary school, firstly, don't know much about mathematics, and secondly, don't really take pains to give the student a really good perspective on all the things math does for us. Right now in this room, as I look about me, I see about 20 different examples of mathematics, including the wristwatch I'm holding, including the architectural design that went into making this coffee cup, including, for example, the date, the time. Those are all mathematical ideas. The amount of money in my wallet, very little. I'm a poor professor.
Yeah.
The mathematics of the cameras that are rolling, the mathematics in the computers here. The world is full of math. Even I see angles wherever I look. I see angles. I see a right angle between the curtain and the floor. We're on a rectangular stage. And now I get the students to wake up about that. Math is in your life. It's not this irrelevant ivory tower academic subject. It's relevant when you balance your checkbook. It's relevant when you get on a jet. The air pressure under the wing is stronger than the air pressure over the wing because the velocity of air under the wing is slower than the air on top of the wing. That's why the airplane goes up. So if math didn't work, there'd be no jet travel. There'd be no VCRs. There'd be no electricity.
There'd certainly be no Nintendo.
No, that's right. And if it wasn't for electricity, we'd be watching TV in the dark.
Would we even have TV without math?
Alrighty, good point.
I guess we wouldn't even have this show without math.
That's right.
So
Look
I
at the
guess
design.
the bridge owes its whole existence to math.
Well, we owe a lot of things to math.
Who was the philosopher that was rapping on math? Was that Kant or was it Hegel? I used to debate because for a while I think it was the 16th or 17th century people in France, and there was a debate that there is no reality, and somebody came up with an example because they were saying all reality is math. In other words, it's hyperbola or whatever that is, and or a sine curve, and then the guy took the example saying, well, okay, if you jump out of the third story hotel and you're doing a parabola, that's the word I wanted. Parabola.
Yep.
And that's reality, but still, when you hit the ground, you're dead.
No more reality.
So
not for you.
He was kind of arguing, yes, it's mathematical, yet there has to be a humanistic element.
Well, actually, a lot of philosophers have had a lot to say about math. Most philosophers at one point get into the question of where are mathematical truths? Are they in the world? Or are they just in our heads? Now, 2 and 2 is 4. Well, what does that really mean in the world? I've never seen 2 in the world. I've seen 2 apples, 2 oranges, 2 cockroaches, 2 deans, 2 whatever. But I've never seen
2 deans? You've seen 2 deans right now?
Well, actually, your last name's Dean. There you go. Very good.
Everywhere you go, Marty, there you are.
That's right. You would do very well in mathematics. So always remember,
I was an honest math student at this very school that we're talking about.
Okay.
But I gave it up because it wasn't relevant to my everyday life.
Gotcha.
But it was because they failed me.
Yeah. Well, you know,
I was trying to seek larger answers, and they wouldn't cut it. Although Mr. Barlow, who was a famed geometry teacher, tried to bring me into the fold.
Gotcha. Now I forgot what I was going to say. I lost my train of thought. I'll wait for the next one. No problem. Do you know, so yeah, philosophers had a lot to say about math. Plato even said that let no one enter here, that's his academy, Plato's academy in Athens, not well versed in geometry. You had to have geometry as a prerequisite, or Plato would not teach you philosophy.
No, Euclid invented geometry, right?
Well, no, he didn't invent it. Euclid simply codified it, organized it in his 13-volume book, The Elements.
And what was
he simply
Pythagoras?
organized geometry.
What was his role in it?
Pythagoras, about 540 BC, Pythagoras developed a proof of the Pythagorean theorem, which was actually known 1,000 years before him in ancient Babylon. And I could babble on and on about Babylon. Well, yeah, so Pythagoras did some number theory. He did lots of things. And yeah, he was really outrageous, Pythagoras. The Pythagoreans were also into mysticism, and to them numbers were a cult phenomenon, and things like that.
Yo, man, what's up? You're breaking my flow. Okay.
Yeah. So Pythagoras actually was a really interesting geometer. Perhaps the founder of modern geometry was Thales, the Milesian, about 600 BC in ancient Greece. He said that you have to prove things. You can't just assert them. The ancient Egyptians and Babylonians asserted math, but the Greeks said math has to be organized. You have to define your terms. You have to have proof. You can't just, there's no room for baloney in math. It's one of the cleanest subjects I've ever seen. You know how there's, like, you can have a political science discussion and throw a lot of BS at each other? You know, your opinion, my opinion, his opinion. But in mathematics, you've got to back it up, Jack. You say something in math, I have a right to say, prove it. Put your money where your mouth is. Let's see a proof. So in a sense, math is like really logical, and that tradition goes back to ancient Greece. I told my students that to study ancient Greece further, you just go to the cafeteria at the college and look where they make the burgers. You know, that's ancient
But how
Greece.
does it fit in, like, with the Stoics and the rhetoricians back in Greece? Where does the mathematics of Greece fit into the tradition?
Well, actually,
and does it go back to more? That's when mathematics come into it. Is that like more tied into when Socrates rises and the rule of rationality?
Socrates admired math a lot. The ancient Greeks realized that math is deductive. It's beautiful. You could say, well, if this is a triangle, it shares in all the properties of triangles. If this is a rectangle, it shares in all the properties of rectangle. But fakers don't like math a lot because, again, math is so exact. You know, we can pinpoint you to exactly what you mean. So math, like I said, there's not a lot of room.
Have you ever studied Wassily Kandinsky?
Never.
He was a Russian painter, and he looked at geometry as the fundamental basis of all reality, and he looked for purity in his pictures. And he was a very wild guy because he was from Russia originally, and he would try to go over the geometry of the landscape in an abstract manner. So it's really wild. Like, if you look at his painting, there's not intrinsically geometry, but it's all geometry.
Look at Escher. Escher's full of fantastic geometry. He must have known oodles of geometry. It's obvious in his art. I teach a course at Purchase now called Geometry and Art. I teach it every spring. It's open really only to visual art students. And I teach them in this course how to incorporate geometric principles in their art. Different symmetries, different spirals, kind of similarity. Perspective drawing from the Renaissance, that's full of mathematics. You know, how to draw things the way they are. So a circle, you know, before the Renaissance, they would draw a circle on a halo on an angel as a circle like so, which was absurd because when you see a circle from a distance, it really looks like an ellipse. So a lot of mathematics, or for example, if you look down Fifth Avenue, the buildings seem to converge toward each other, toward what we call the vanishing point. That's a very geometric, mathematical idea. So mathematics helped art get better. It helped music theory get better. The Pythagoreans, by the way, noticed that if strings had certain ratio of lengths, they'd have pleasing sounds when they're plucked together. That's the whole basis of harmony. Which notes go good together, and it's mathematical, darn it. Yeah, so even harmony is extremely mathematical.
That led you, like, this might bring up another aspect of Marty as an accomplished musician, and later he's going to be playing for you all folks. Did you find that your love of mathematics, your insight to them led you to being a musician, or is it the other way around? Or
That's an interesting question. I know they mix in my brain. I'm not really sure, like, was it the chicken or the egg, if you know what I mean, but by the time I was already, like, 8 years old.
How long have you been playing music?
Forever. You know, just started when I was 6 years old and never stopped. And my advice.
You started on the piano? What did you start on?
Guitar.
Guitar.
Just guitar all the way. And a lot of people don't realize that guitar ain't just for strumming, just throwing your pick up and down on the strings. It's for melody. It's for harmony. You can play Les Mis on guitar where no one even sings. It's a good accompaniment instrument. You could do blues. You could do just about everything on guitar. It ain't just for, like I said, you know, strumming up and down or picking with a pick just to do a rock lead. I do a lot of finger picking. This is Bernie, the bass guitar. And,
Hey, everyone give a shout out to Bernie.
Yeah, this is Bernie. And then Bernie on the fingers. That's the name of the group. The fingers play the treble notes and the middle notes, and Bernie plays
I think
the
I saw you on the
notes.
charts last week.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. The medical charts at the hospital. Yes.
Yes,
I've been
of course.
on them
Well, I didn't
for
want to
a
bring
very
that
long
up,
time.
but you know.
Well, I signed a contract with Columbia recently, and I have to buy 1 CD every month, and I can cancel anytime. So it's really just a pleasure having a contract with Columbia. You got to have your sense of humor to teach math, by the way.
Is that now? Do you
have
if you
to.
like? So when you get this, like a mutual friend of ours saying that you're a popular professor over their purchase, do you find like because you make it entertaining?
I think the humor helps.
And do you find that people have been turned off from math because it wasn't entertaining? They didn't see how it was real.
Yeah.
They were taught. They were scared. They had a hang up.
Yep, and a lot of people are told in math there's only one right answer. Well, that's true, but there's 20 different ways to get to the right answer. There's lots of room for creativity. The Pythagorean theorem to date has over 250 different proofs. So there might be one goal, getting the right answer, but there's lots of creativity in how you get there. You can use geometry or algebra, a combination, trig, combinatorical reasoning.
So in other words, you're saying like you're dealing with a notion like how people think it's rigid when it's anything but.
It's not. There's so much flexibility, so much creativity. I've shown artistic people how beautiful math is.
Tell me what is the
it
experience now? Usually like, a lot of people are visual artists. A lot of them like suffer from dyslexia and whatnot, and they've never been into the math and stuff. Now or maybe they were not that, but they just did visual. How do you find them relating to the math when they're coming from such a visual background?
Interesting. First, I find there's a little fear, and there's a little reluctance.
And why do they have to take it? Because it's part of their, is it part of their major, or is it an elective and they're just trying to like stretch their mind?
Yeah, well, some of them are there because as visual artists at the college, they have to take, I think, 30 credits outside of art. So when they hear there's a course, geometry and art, they figure, well, they're fulfilling those 30 credits outside of art, but maybe it's also useful for art. And I think I have a good success rate with these kids. They come in afraid of math, and they leave a little less afraid, a little more aware of the relevance of mathematics to their lives. And I find that a lot of them do very well. They don't even realize, some of them, that they do have good mathematical intuition, so to speak. And why not, so to speak? So it's and I've had some lively conversations outside of the classroom where we just tear up pieces of paper and just really go at that math. And they saw that geometry is probably an essential element in the reasoning of any artist. You have to have a good sense of space if you're going to draw. So, you know, it's a good thing. It's a good public relations kind of situation. I always have to remember at the board, I am an ambassador of mathematics. I represent it. If I can come in with a good sense of humor, win the goodwill of the students, let them know.
So is math kind of like a state of mind for you? Like when you say like you're an ambassador of it, that you're representing it, it's kind of like a whole outlook for you. It's like a perception of how you see reality.
It's with me a lot. Every day I read some math. I always want to read new math every day. I don't want to just teach. I want to do.
By the way, you have a PhD in math, and do you also do research and publish papers?
Yeah.
What's your subject that you've been studying?
I do research in a very arcane subject called graph theory. It's a sub-branch of combinatorics. That was the mathematics in the movie Good Will Hunting.
Oh, yes?
I do a lot of that. By the way, I enjoyed that movie thoroughly. Thought it was great.
I didn't see it.
It's a must-see. Robin Williams is fantastic in it.
Because like the math in my wallet is 0.
Gotcha. Yeah, the green count,
I can't afford to go to the movie. I gotta wait till it goes on free TV.
Gotcha. Well,
Which is nothing that's too much free these days. We're gonna be talking more about other personal issues and freedom because Marty's truly representing man.
I'll lend you the video if you like.
That'd be great.
I have the tape at home.
That'd be awesome, man.
Yeah, I saw it in Boston.
My VCR's broken though, but I can borrow my parents'.
There you go. There you go. I think we have that problem kind of solved. That's another thing about being a mathematician.
But wait a minute. So they're in the movie Good Will Hunting. They're talking about your theory of math.
Yeah,
what is it anyway?
Combinatorics really deals with how do we combine finitely many things. Like if you give me 5 letters, A, B, C, D, E, and you tell me write them down in any order I want, but use each letter once. So I can write down A, B, C, D, E. I could write down E, D, C, B, A, or E, A, B, C, D. Well, believe it or not, there's 120 different ways I could do that. There's 120 different ways that I can line up the letters A, B, C, D, E. Or if there's 5 people waiting in line at a bank, there's 120 different ways those 5 people can line up, even though there's only 5 people. If it's 10 people, you'd be surprised. That's over 3.5 million different ways that 10 people can line up.
It's interesting. I was watching somehow to get prepared for the show today on C-SPAN. They had a guy who wrote a book on mathematics, and he was saying 2 to the 20th power is a million, or something, I guess. And he was saying like if you ask somebody, you can find out what number somebody's thinking if they tell you truthfully if you ask them 20 questions.
Wow. Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's so cool. There's a guy coming on my show that knows math, and I can ask him if that was real or if I was getting put on by C-SPAN.
Yeah, that might be a little of an exaggeration there about the asking questions. I mean, there are master politicians out there. You can question them the rest of your life. You're not going to get the truth.
Yeah.
You know? Reminds me of the farmer who...
Are you for Hillary or Rudy?
Neither.
Neither?
No. You know, the
Are
vote,
you political?
Very. I favor libertarian politics. I like what Thomas
Why don't you
Jefferson
talk about
said.
some of your work? You were talking about like a group, the Loft and stuff. Why don't you talk about the nature?
Sure. Being an open bisexual and a former activist in the gay, lesbian, civil rights movement, I probably could tell you a lot about stuff like that. There was an organization in Westchester, the Loft, a community services organization for lesbians, gays, and bis, and I worked with them for 3 years. Donated some time to be a telephone operator. We had a helpline. People could call in. I learned a lot myself, and I think we helped a lot of people. We organized political events. One interesting event that got us noticed, I think, was one Valentine's Day. We went to Metro North in White Plains, and as people were getting off the train, we handed them leaflets saying, "The Loft says Happy Valentine's Day to you, and remember, the same gender love is as valid, as good as opposite gender love." That was a real political message. And I think America needs to hear that message. When people hear the word homosexual, all they think of is sex. They think of
Well, you were
guys
talking, we
going
were
off
having
and
a
just
rap
having
about
sex.
prejudice, right?
Yeah.
You
Oh,
were talking
yeah.
about like
That
not
comes
being
back to
labeled.
prejudice. Yeah.
You know, why don't you riff
Yeah.
on that for a bit?
Sure. I really think that, you know, we have good brains. Nature gave us brains. We're very smart, I think. And we're probably the most intelligent creature on Earth anyway.
So you believe in the
human beings.
rationality of
I think humans
the mind?
can be. They can be very rational.
Well,
if they
in
choose
my
to.
intellectual thought, I tend to go into the irrationality of life. And that's why I see myself as a modernist and going into absurdity. And lately I've been attracted to Hugo Ball and Dadaism. Like I want to break it up. Like I feel like the mind is fundamentally irrational. Almost going back to, you know, like a Husserl phenomenology thing.
Well, you're sounding rational right now, so you're contradicting yourself there. Because you're really analyzing things using reason to tell us that the mind doesn't have reason.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we couldn't even understand each other if reason wasn't valid. I'm not saying that. I see, the thing is, I believe in free will. I have to. I have no choice. Isaac Bashevis Singer said that.
That sounds like a Nietzsche thing.
But it's very neat, yeah. And do you know, I know Nietzsche. You see, I really believe we have free will. We have the capacity for rationality, but we have to choose to exercise it. So a person can, by default, not be reasonable. Ergo...
So you're existential in that sense that you look that we have to take responsibility for our choice, but within, by taking responsibility for our choice, we have freedom?
Well, I suppose that freedom is there for the taking, and if you don't exercise it, what good is it? I don't know if I agree with the premises of existentialism, because they really say that life is inherently meaningless. I don't really believe that. I think life is very meaningful. There's productive achievement, there's fun, there's music, there's art to create, there's space exploration to do. Life is very meaningful, but we have to work very hard to realize the
So
dream.
you kind of like seeing life as a process of learning?
Definitely. If we don't learn, we are doomed to live the way the amoeba lives, just floating around waiting for any happenstance to bunk into it. On the subject of thinking and on prejudice, it's hard to be reasonable. To be reasonable, it's not enough to say, oh yeah, I'm willing to think. No, we have to be willing to go to the depths of truth. Truth must be dug up. It's buried often. Now let's say I'm on the train and I see a guy dressed like you are. Shorts, a t-shirt, the hat, the no socks. I might say, and I wouldn't, but it's possible somebody to look at you and say, oh, there's another bum. But that's prejudice.
They were saying that to me yesterday, by the way.
Really? Well, that's a terrible thing to do.
I got to tell you the story, man. I was coming out on the train, the commuter train, which is a big thing from Chappaqua, and like I was sitting down by the telephone, right? And I looked just like this, the pants on, same outfit. I don't change my shirt all weekend, folks. And I'm sitting there, and these by the telephone thing, the little chair, and it's crowded. And I'm not getting up, but everyone thought like I was kind of like going up to Bruce or something, like I was a lowlife, and they were talking to me accordingly. Like whereas the rest of the week I wear like a suit and a tie, and people talk to me different.
That's right.
Than when I'm wearing red sneakers, dungarees, and a shirt. Even though I'd worked all day up in Madison Avenue and been quite respectable, got praise from my boss.
Yeah, now you see, Bob, it's not fair. People sometimes look and they don't see what's really there. A lot of people think superficially.
By person.
Yeah, people think superficially, and that's bad. It's not just that it's an injustice to you, they're shortchanging themselves. If I am prejudiced, I will pay, not just the people I'm prejudiced against. Let's say I have a company and I don't feel like hiring blacks, okay? Well, the black guy that I'm interviewing that I simply dismiss, he might be the best guy for the job. He might be the fella that can turn my business around and make it become an overnight success. So by my being prejudiced against blacks, I'm not just hurting him or her, I'm hurting me.
Well, it's almost like you're talking about the
That's-
whole
that's the
process
thing
of
about
perception,
prejudice.
though, too.
Yeah, yeah. You have to really look beyond
Now, do you find
the
like your
surface.
grounding in mathematics really makes you very sensitive to process and processes?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. The exactitude that mathematics demands. Mathematics cannot tolerate doing something half-assed. You really have to go the distance.
You got to be thorough.
Thorough, and you have to really delve at truth. Now, somebody gives me the number 63 divided by 6. I can't just cancel the 6's and say the answer is 3. You see, I can't just do what might appear reasonable. I have to really go further. I have to look beyond the cover of the book, beyond the clothes of the person, beyond the color of the skin. The mathematician has to think carefully, and so does everybody else. But with me, it's a necessity every day in my career. So let's say, you meet a person who's well, the world is full of prejudice. We do this
But do you
every
find
day.
like now, as a bisexual person, that you run into like just like the prejudice
Around
like,
the
there's
clock.
the process,
Around the clock.
and it's not fair. It's just hurled at you.
Yep.
Did
A lot of
that
people
lead you? Did that lead you to being an activist and still being an activist?
I think I became an activist partially because of my own suffering in my early years as a teenager, but I think also
Where did you grow up?
Brooklyn, in a very conservative religious Jewish community. And of course to them, well, being bi or gay is like
When did you know that you were bisexual?
evil. Probably when I was about 12.
That's when. And was it a conflict? Like,
Extremely, because I was also a religious kid. So there was religion, Leviticus.
how did your parents come to deal with it?
Leviticus, by the way, advocates a death penalty for homosexuality. Death penalty. That's pretty darn serious. That's right up there. That's sort of like treating a guy who loves guys as a murderer.
When you say that
That's
you
really
came back
sick.
from a conservative background, what do you mean by that? Religious
Well,
background?
religious, very religious conservative, belief in God and things like that.
Because you were saying too, why don't you talk about that too? You're an atheist, right?
I am a militant atheist. On the other, I do practice live and let live, so I would defend to the death the right of people to go to church or to go to synagogue or to go to a mosque. In fact, I would be out there defending a church if the government decided to close down churches or anything like that. On the other hand, I want equal respect from religious people who will defend my right to be an atheist. I think religion has a terrible track record. Over the past several thousands of years, religion is responsible for untold quantities of murder, killing, for example, the church in the last 2,000 years. Look at their record in Europe. Crusades, Reformation wars, slaughter of innocent people, the Pope sending an army to slay 30,000 Albigensians in France because of the heresy of their believing in the equality of dark and light, good and bad. Look at the burning of gays. Look at the burning of witches. Witches were harmless people. There's a lot of prejudice about witchcraft, as you know. Witches do not worship Satan. They're not part of the Judeo-Christian culture. How can they worship Satan? And so the church killed lots of women, lots of gays, lots of Jews were killed by the church. The Black Plague of the 1350s was blamed on Jews. The Christian church said, well, that the Jews were poisoning the wells. So lots of Jews were killed. The church killed lots of scientists. Galileo was almost burned at the stake. Just good luck for him that, fortunate for him, he recanted and he said, all right, the earth doesn't move, blah, blah, blah. So look at the record of the church. In the 1800s, the church even fought anesthesia as evil, as the work of the devil, as something that should be banned. Knowledge and science has had to struggle for 1,000 years against the tyranny of the church. Church and state made a deadly alliance.
When you say church, you're talking about the Roman Catholic Church.
Well, certain other churches. After the Protestant Reformation, the Protestant armies were as bloody as the Catholic armies any day of the week. The Reformation, on both sides, the blood spilling was ferocious. Look at the Islamic fundamentalists and their values.
You don't find like the Israelis terrorizing the PLO and
Israelis I take with a grain of salt for a lot of reasons. I give them a little latitude. Look at their record. World War II, the Holocaust, 6 million Jews killed. So a bunch of guys came to Israel and they tried to, well, actually, they started going there in the 1800s and it was called Palestine
well,
still.
actually, yeah, but actually you can study it too. Like, there's a really good book, like John Genet, Prisoner of Love, where he really talks about the whole situation over there. And like, because the big theme, what I'm trying to do in this show too, is how news and information is reported. And he really just explores like how like the PLO was really created still Japanese newspapers. They would just pose for that.
Yeah. Well, put it this way, out of all the governments in the Middle East, Israel is probably the freest. They try to keep their fundamentalist wackos in check. So the 10% of religious Jews in Israel that want to force everybody to live with their lifestyle, at least there's some sort of a check and balance against them. So in Israel, you can eat pork, even though pork is against the Jewish law. You wouldn't have as much luck in Syria if you tried to violate Islamic law. You wouldn't have as much luck under that nut, Saddam Hussein. So given all the countries in the Middle East, I'd rather be in Israel any day of the week. I'm not giving them a whitewash. Sure, you know, government by its nature probably is corrupt to some extent.
Well, how was in your dealings in your activism, like the nature of dealing with government officials and stuff? And like, what do you feel like about the laws? And as a bisexual person, have you?
A lot of our laws are very, very discriminatory. I do believe that the religious right in America is truly evil. They are
You really
truly,
going to come
truly
out and
evil.
say like they're evil?
The religious right. Now, I don't mean religious people. I've met religious people that I get along with very, very well.
So you're not down with Jerry Falwell?
Jerry Falwell is, in my opinion, un-American. He does not understand a simple principle like the separation of church and state.
So you're saying that there shouldn't be prayer in school?
Not in the public schools. By the way, the reason people wanted to pray in the schools is because they took math tests. No, just kidding. Okay, that would certainly make people want to pray in the schools. I believe that separation of church and state is fundamentally important. I resent taking out $1 and seeing on it, "In God we trust," because I don't, and I know lots of people who don't. That's a nervy thing, and by the way, that started only in the 1950s, I understand, as a kind of a McCarthyite reaction to the so-called Marxist atheists. Now, I'm not a Marxist, but it isn't because a lot of Marxists are atheists. I just disagree with their labor theory of value. They ignore the realities of the free market. But that's
so you're more into Ricardo and people like that?
Libertarian, kind of laissez-faire economics. You know, I like what Jefferson said. He said that government governs best which governs least. Government, get out of my face. Just do as little as you have to. We need cops, we need courts, we need jails, we need an army. But today, the government is mommy and daddy. They treat us like children. The government can stop you and tell you to put your seatbelt on in your own car. I happen to use my seatbelt if any police are watching. But
they're watching too. We shouted out to Chapel Club Police, man. You guys are the best.
By the way, a lot of cops are the victims of prejudice. A lot of people, look at a policeman and say, "Oh, a fascist wants to hit me on the head with his nightstick." A lot of cops are good. They want to enforce justice. They want to help the public. You know, they deliver babies. They do a lot of good things. Some cops are fascists. There's no question about it. But prejudice is ascribing to the whole group the sins of some percentage.
So basically,
of that
from your outlook, you're just saying like it's a whole basic, like people are caught up in prejudice. Just like
totally.
Really false process. Nobody's really studying like the process and the contours of their thought. Would that be a fair thing to shout out at you?
I think so. I think a lot of people are not willing to think deeply about things to get to the truth. The truth is hard to get to. If you go into any bar in America on a Saturday night, you'll hear so many opinions that are not well thought through. Just a guy heard some opinion yesterday and he has to make conversation, so he delivers the opinion today. He read something in a newspaper, saw it on TV, and it sounded slick, so that's his opinion. The fact of the matter is that to really understand an issue, there's so much you have to know about the issue. It's hard to think carefully.
So as a professor, you're saying too, like people's critical skills are severely diminished.
Many people I meet are not willing or able at this point to think really critically.
You really wanted to talk too about the ghettoization of university life?
And that's not a good thing either.
You know what I mean by that? Like the fact that you were saying like how there's no common disciplines. Like either you study math, you study art, you study pre-med. There's no like...
No interdisciplinary. There's very little interdisciplinary work. At my college, I'm one of the few faculty that have ventured in several ways into interdisciplinary work. I teach students about math and music, art and music. I teach history of math. I teach about how philosophy and math have to do with each other. Not only has the administration never, ever thanked me in the years that I have been doing this kind of work.
So you have a conflict with them?
They've almost gotten in my way. Other faculty have sometimes even gotten in my way about this, for example, history of math course, which is a wonderful way to teach math to non-math majors. That are,
like what kind of things do you talk? I know like he does a great thing too. If you shout out to some of my viewers,
like for example, the influence of mathematics on navigating the Atlantic. That was all mathematical. The influence of math on Ptolemy's map of the world in about 100 AD, longitude and latitude. The influence of mathematics on astronomy, on the calendar, on predicting when the Nile's flooded in ancient Egypt. What math has done for chemistry to balance chemical equations, to understand things we can't even see. The carbon and the hydrogen in organic material. You know, we're full of saturated hydrocarbons, and we have carbon, nitrogen, oxygen as well. Mathematics has helped chemistry immeasurably. Mathematics helps us fly our jets. In the history of math course, I have shown my students how math affects just about everything they do. And instead of getting support, I had to fight to get the course initiated and to continue the course. So there's just a lot of professors just want their own little niche. You know, I'm doing philosophy.
Don't bother me with anything else.
A lot of politics in academia. Academia is a horribly political place. You have to really watch your back. The backstabbing in academia is probably infinitely worse than backstabbing in many other institutions. It's very, very bad, and there's so little to fight over. And maybe a lot of professors are insecure. Maybe when they were teenagers, they were made fun of, you know, called geeks and stuff like that. That they get to academia, they have to guard their little turf zealously. And they're threatened by a lot of things, you know. Again, I'm generalizing here. I've met lots of great faculty at Purchase and in other places. Just by the way, Purchase, I have to tell you, is, in my opinion, potentially one of the greatest colleges I've ever seen. It has
It's got that Andy Moore sculpture right out there, you know, right?
It's a lot of
I lost my virginity
edge,
over Purchase, man. So it's one of the greatest colleges in my book.
A lot of cutting edge art at Purchase, a great dance division, a great music division. The visual arts there are great. Our dance division takes prizes in international contests, and the letters and science is good. The math and science is very good. The literature, the humanities, etc., etc. We have a very published faculty, and students can really benefit tremendously. Our music there is comparable to many conservatories across the country.
Let's talk more about your music too. You got an MFA there, right?
I took an MFA in music while I was, I mean, working there. I had a right to take one free course per term. So I took an MFA, it took me 3 years, and it's helped me become a composer.
So why don't you feel like playing some music for my viewers? We can
Sure.
Let Marty show you a really awesome guitar.
Yeah, let him see Bernie the bass guitar player at work.
Okay, do it up.
I'll do it.
If you want to take a little break, go ahead.
No, I'm ready. good?
Yeah, keep playing. Do you mind if I jam some poetry over what you're playing?
I am, maybe not. You know what? This is also my dark side. Like, I like my art to be very, very just me. You know?
Oh, all right.
Very unusual, but very...
That's kind of fucked up, but it's okay.
Yeah. No, it's not. Because,
so anyway...
Because I'm a purist, you know what I mean? I want just like, if it's art,
so why don't you
mine.
read some poetry right now? That's why I was coming in, because we got enough music.
It's good.
This is what we're going to do now. Why don't you read about 5 minutes worth of poetry.
5 minutes of poetry.
Or 10, and then I'm going to come back in. I'm going to do like another wrap, like 10 more minute conversation. We got enough, because we did 30 minutes before. And the way this shows, the way the format's going to be like 40 minutes talk, maybe 15 minutes guitar, 5 minutes poetry.
It's beautiful, Conrad.
So we got 30 minutes of talk. We got 20 minutes of music now. So why don't you give us 5 minutes, 10 minutes of poetry, and then
we talk a little more.
And then we'll talk a little more, and it's a wrap.
Beautiful. This is good. Yeah, I don't like rap because rap is kind of
I mean just
like the message. No, I know what you mean. No, rap. Rap music. Like boom, 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 boom. Yeah. You say when? Should we close the door for this just in case?
Working?
Yeah.
You around?
Yeah. What's up?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm gonna work the camera, so like if you want to like tell me what I need to do or anything.
Okay. I'll put the door closed here.
It's good.
I might do some like creative zooms in and out. So what? Should I do a countdown, Rob, or are you gonna count down to me and I'll count down to him?
Should I talk about the poem a second before I read it?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
Okay, gotcha.
So
That's good.
I guess I'm gonna do a countdown and then you do what you gotta do.
All right.
Marty?
It's good.
Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, in the days of my civil rights activism for the gay lesbian movement, I found that poetry could sometimes, or art in general, could be a very effective political medium. So, for example, this was a poem called Homophobes. A homophobe, for those of you who don't know, is a person who's either afraid of gay, lesbian, and bi people, or just downright just a hater, just kind of lowlife that hates. Well, anyway, so the poem's called Homophobes. Do not preach on love to me. I have no ear to lend to you. For you have not earned your certainty. How easily you label true your tired opinions, hateful views, things I've heard 100 times. Shallow judgments, day old news. Shame on you, pathetic mimes. How you rant against same-sex love, with hate-filled words devoid of thought. You spill your droppings from above like pea-brained birds who can't be taught to think with crystal clarity, to seek the truth about all things. For you I have no charity. I'll fight you till tomorrow brings a time when love can be expressed accordingly as each sees best. This is a poem about how we ruin our kids, how we teach them macho crap, how fathers teach this to their sons, how football coaches in high school teach this to their fledglings under their jurisdiction and authority. It's called Another Boy Becomes a Man. Another boy becomes a man and sheds the smooth, soft skin of youth. He stands full-fledged amongst his clan and dons the cloak of his tribe's truth. He learns to keep his tears concealed. With sweet song voice he must not speak, and of his fears his lips are sealed. He'll kiss no more his mother's cheek. Sure and safe with mind shut tight, now less inclined to grow and play, the man whose soul once burned so bright is closer to his grave today. Here's one that is quasi-personal and quasi-fictitious. It's about the difficulty that lots of gays, bis, and lesbians have finding love because, well, so many times the object of their love has already been ruined by social mores and values that say that you can only love the opposite gender. I take a little shot here at some of my enemies too, but that's okay. It's called I Bear a Wound That Will Not Heal. I bear a wound that will not heal, a wound that scars won't cover, and naught can ease the pain I feel that o'er my head does hover. Many times was my wound struck, some gashes deeper than the rest. In wars of love I've had no luck, my heart's an empty treasure chest. I am a man who would love men, and so I'm scorned and hated. My love is stymied again and again, each new attempt ill-fated. 100 lovers snatched away by stale ideas of yesterday, when the mighty church ruled, and the peasants drooled, and the word of the priest from the west to the east was the law of the land, and same-gender love was banned. Yet now the jets fly overhead, and man stopped seeking gold from lead. In love's affairs we still allow the tyranny of the sacred cow. And so denied love's mighty shield, my pain is tenfold magnified. While old heartbreaks have not yet healed, still newer ones push them aside. The relief I seek eludes me still. I search in vain a friendly shore, where seafarers who've fallen ill can to their ailing souls restore the peace they knew before the storm. The gently lapping green blue seas, the autumn breezes blowing warm, the joy of nature's mysteries. I bear a wound that will not heal, a wound that scars won't cover, and naught can ease the pain I feel, naught that is but a lover. And I'll just close with one that I like a lot. It has a lesson for all of us. It teaches us how to think for ourselves, how to be critical when we're told things, how to not simply accept authority. Authority is what led to Nazi Germany. Heil Hitler, everybody just accepted. No, you must think for yourself. And here's the poem. It's called Words. In a secret chamber of my heart, where there's no room for a lie, not even one small tiny part, where there's found no alibi, in that closely guarded center, behind thick walls that none can scale, where deceit may never enter and hypocrisy will fail, there's a truth that's carved in stone, one that took some time to chisel, monolithic, cold, alone, yet it makes my spirit sizzle. Often have I silent prayed the solemn holy words unspoken, words that I have not betrayed, and to this day my faith's unbroken. Remember what you now shall read, words you ne'er again might see. Take them with you, pay them heed, reflect on them most carefully. Do not trust the words of others, parents, teachers, friends, or brothers. Alone the wine of wisdom drink, for truth comes but to those who think. And when some people bully you, dictating what to think or do, fight them with the battle cry that guards your mind with a sacred word. Why?
Awesome, Marty.
Thanks.
So, Rob, I don't know if you want to sit down and go back in and then we'll wrap your rep. Something like that? Or should I just set it up so I'd be like here? Alright. That was awesome, Marty. Those were really good poems.
Thanks. Poetry can be political.
He was taking it too. He noticed a big difference between my poetry and yours. Like he was saying, like how he was noticing a rhythmic.
Mm-hmm.
You were telling me that the other day.
Yeah, rhyme and scan. You know, I'm a purist with my little narrow ways.
We're discussing that was sort of mathematical.
Yeah. No offense to the rest of the world. I respect what other people do, but I'm, like I said, a very, my art has to be my own. What now?
We're just going to get me set up and then we're just going to talk for 5 or 10 more minutes just as a wrap up.
Super duper.
And then we got it.
Then we got it.
I'm going to come up later during the week, edit it, and be on next Monday.
Great. Next Monday night? What time is it on?
It's on Mondays at 6, 10 o'clock, and Tuesday mornings at 8.
Oh, it's repeated. Oh, awesome.
It's going to be an hour-long show.
Super.
And depending on what day I edit it, I might edit during, depends on the time of my work schedule, but the very latest it'll be edited, but the latest it will be is Saturday 9 o'clock this time.
Gotcha.
At the latest.
Gotcha. Awesome.
Because I want to do a lot of time with it, so when I might come up, I'm not going to rush it. I like to spend a lot of time. Like I said, we're going to dub in the pictures, because we're going to take the CD and put the CD on too.
Awesome. Awesome. Great.
And then we're going to mix in, like I was saying, the music and the poems and the conversation.
Cool. Cool.
And they were all saying, they gave me thumbs up on the interview, so.
Good. You're a good guy, Bob. It's a good show. It's a good idea to really get different people on, different perspectives, different points of view. It's good.
That's what it's all for me. That's what it's been about.
Maybe it'll shake people up a little too.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah. It's just, well, it's good too, because like, you're talking about very concrete, real things too. You're talking about math, and I like to keep people guessing too. Like people might, because I'm obviously, I'm sure you've noticed, put a lot of camp into the show, but it's not just about camp, and I'm actually going for something serious too.
This show I think was very serious.
Yeah. So right when people start to think, oh well, they're going with the camp. All of a sudden, like I'll have a math professor on.
Good man.
And like when I'm running a repeat show of a homeopath, which will be on Monday. I'm saying like,
Good.
Even though the last 3 months I've been doing abstract shows full of music and photographs and poetry, so they'll be just thinking, oh wow, it's all camped out. Now on Monday will be a homeopath.
Cool.
And then next Monday, and then also by the way, I usually let the show run at least 2 weeks. So you'll be on actually 4 times at least.
Awesome. Before the show ends, we should probably say one thing also about gay prejudice. People have such prejudice.
Why don't we just start off the conversation? I'm going to start off.
Because I have an interesting point to make, I think.
So Rob, are we good to go? Okay. Wow, Marty, that was great playing and poetry. It was awesome. I was over there in the camera and I was really moved by the music. And then we were out in the studio and we were listening to you do that instrumental, and it was really sweet. And it just goes to show that, we could get back to that theme of prejudice, how some people who are into mathematics get labeled geek and whatever. It just shows that, it's all interdisciplinary. You can have math, you can have music, poetry. You know, you're not a one-dimensional person. You have a little bit of math, whatever too. So it's really about kind of combating prejudice, a lot of it too.
Yeah.
And you wanted to add some more thoughts on that subject?
Yeah. Prejudice is the enemy of all of us. It's everybody's enemy. We all stand to lose from prejudice because we all have certain characteristics, you know, whatever it is, skin color, sexual orientation, whatever. And it's kind of not fair. We all owe each other a fair shake. I meet a new person, I owe that person a blank sheet of paper. I get the person's name. Now, what will I learn about that person? What traits will emerge? Because my initial perceptions can be all wrong. They can be tremendously influenced by past people that I've met, etc., etc. Now, with the whole gay phenomenon, I bet you a lot of people in America think that if you're gay or bi, and if you're a guy, you can't do sports. You know, I happen to have done Shotokan karate for over 20 years.
Oh,
I
yeah,
teach it
you're
at
an
my college.
instructor, and this will be a follow-up show, gang, but like you're an instructor of karate also at Purchase, or you were? Or?
Yeah, I still teach karate at Purchase. I've been practicing it for over 20 years. Unfortunately, I've had a whole bunch of street fights. I've done very well in them. I'm still here. My nose is still intact. And
we won one, his nose screwed up, people.
And it's a big one at that. And it's a big misperception to think, and we do this, we underestimate people. You see a guy with glasses reading a math book, you think, he can't throw a ball. I played lots of football. I'm okay. You know, and I can certainly throw a karate punch. The hand of friendship can turn into a fist, if it must, to defend myself or my loved ones. And in general, we lose. We are wrong when we are prejudiced. And a lot of people go to, you know, they see like a gay parade, and they see a couple of guys on a float, you know, naked except for fig leaves, being very frivolous and flighty, and, you know, very effeminate. And then they get certain stereotypes into their minds that that's what gay is all about. That ain't at all what gay is all about. Bi is about one thing. There's only one thing that unites all gays and lesbians and bis across the world. It ain't the way they dress, it ain't the way they speak, it ain't the entertainment they like. It is one thing, the willingness and ability to love the same gender. That's the end of it. And why do we judge people for that? After all, it's such a small part of a person.
Why is it called unnatural, right?
Yeah, there's nothing unnatural about it at all. Love
Don't you
is
have
love.
on your song on your CD? And by the way, we're going to be playing the CD throughout the thing. You have a song called The Unnatural?
First song, Unnatural. There's a cello, guitar,
by the way,
flute.
we opened the show with this, gang. So that was the first song that you heard in the introduction credits. Why don't you talk about that
Sure.
song?
Well, I wrote this a bunch of years ago to bring out a point. People think that it's unnatural for a man to love a man, or it's unnatural for a woman to love a woman. Well, a lot of things are unnatural, like riding in an aluminum tube 30,000 feet above the Atlantic. Nature didn't intend sort of for us to do that, so the natural argument isn't a very good argument against loving the same gender. More importantly, well, in this song, I fictionally envisage a whale and a bird that meet each other one day at sea, and they start to like each other. And the whale is represented by the cello in the opening piece, and the bird is represented, of course, by the flute. And they start to really admire each other, interact, love each other's personalities. And then, of course, sadly, the whale has to return to the deep blue sea and the bird has to fly back to land. So there's a tinge of sadness in the piece. You'll notice that in the cellos. But the point, I hope, is well taken. Love is love. Our French philosopher Proudhon said something very wise. L'âme n'a pas du sexe. The soul does not have a gender. The soul doesn't have a sex. You can love a person because he or she is witty, is bright, is nice, is generous, is funny, and so on and so forth. And the shape of the genitals, I don't think are very, very directly relevant. And besides, how much time do we spend in the bedroom anyway, or wherever we make love, on top of the refrigerator, in the elevator? You know, the fact that...
You like doing it on top of the refrigerator?
Top of the refrigerator is a great place.
I haven't been able to get on top of the refrigerator lately.
You know,
I've been doing it underneath the refrigerator.
Hey, that's good too. You know, and the fact, and afterwards when you get the munchies, you don't have far to go.
It was also so hot. It was so hot last week. I was doing it inside the refrigerator.
Awesome. I tell you, man, life's tough. Life's tough. You know, hey, money talks, all it says to me is goodbye. You know,
yeah.
It's hard to be a professor and live on my income. But the bottom line is, this whole sexual orientation issue is misunderstood by a lot of people. The issues are surrounded by ignorance. People don't understand. You know, if a Boy Scout leader is gay, he is not more likely to molest a child than a straight leader. Straight teachers have plenty molested little girls in their schools. And molestation is not a phenomenon of sexual orientation, has nothing to do with sexual orientation. Let's get rid of our fears. Let's get rid of those phobias. A gay person can fight in the military just as well as a straight person. One of the fiercest armies in the ancient world, the Spartan army, consisted of gay people. And this army was feared and dreaded throughout the land.
That comes back to what we were kind of like talking before, though, because I kind of feel like taking a view of like Foucault and saying reality is determined by discourse and who controls the discourse. Although you were saying more, and it's more rational or something, but you must be sensitive to what sets the perimeters and parameters of discourse.
Absolutely. And in general, the safest thing we can ever do when we have questions about each other, and humans are curious about other humans, safest things to ask instead of assuming. Assuming is totally wrong. If I meet a person, I want to know what your political opinions are. It's wrong to say, well, he's wearing a cap, so he probably thinks this and this and this. Best thing to do, you want to know what I think about
So you don't
anything?
hold it against me, I
Just
don't wear
ask.
socks?
I think it's fine to be sockless in our society. It's a great, great thing. You know, the bottom line is, if somebody wants to know what I think about something, just ask me. It's very, very, very simple. Don't make assumptions. We sometimes assume if somebody is 17, they're probably not mature. If somebody's 40, they probably are mature. Baloney, I've seen it the other way around so often. We lose when we're prejudiced. It's not fair. It's not right. It's not a good way of thinking. Reality is a hard place to understand. We have to try hard. And you meet a person that's gay, don't make assumptions about him. Don't think he can't punch you back just as hard as you punch him, or maybe even harder. Do not mistake nice for weakness. That's a big mistake a lot of people make when they meet me.
Yeah, I go through that too,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. You know, when you're initially very nice to people, they think, oh, good, here's somebody I can shit on. No go. Person can be very, very polite, very nice. In fact, the whole karate way is to be very friendly, very, very nice. Put your hand forward, like I said before. Same hand turns into a fist of defense. And do not be fooled. When you meet someone who's a very talented musician, don't think geek, don't think defenseless person. Don't think that he's somebody who can't throw a football or kick you in the groin real hard. So in general, we pay for our mistakes. When you underestimate your opponent, you lose. And in lots of ways, let's give each other a fair shake. It's like
I've been studying Tai Chi, and that's a big principle in the Tai Chi, is to use the energy of your opponent against them. In other words, you don't need to be us, for instance, you don't need to be the strongest person in the world to win, like David and Goliath. In other words, like in Tai Chi, when the enemy comes in strong, he might be stronger than you, literally in a physical sense. But if you sidestep and all of a sudden like they lose their balance, all of a sudden you just need the touch of a feather to knock them down.
Well, I train my students to punch real hard, but to wait for the right...
No fooling around for Marty, man. He likes
Yeah.
to kick ass,
Yeah.
man. I just want to say the bridge kicks ass, and we
does.
like to shout it out and kick butt.
Yeah, it's a good show. I'm very glad. Thank you very much for inviting me on the show. And
Yeah, and you've been an awesome guest, man. Marty Lewinter, give it a shout out for him. Thanks. It's a wrap.
Thanks. All right, man. Good, 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 good.
You're
Yeah,
a great
I tell
guest, man. We had a lot of fun.
I'm trying, I'm very trying, you know? And I hope people realize out there that I mean what I say. You know, I really do.
rum left? Can I go and make another drink?